Dear students, welcome to the online lecture of interpretation of statutes. Today I am going to discuss the doctrine of Naucita Associis. We have discussed this doctrine under literal rule of interpretation. However, we did not go into the cases in which this doctrine has been used or refused to have been used. So today I am going to deal with some cases in which doctrine of Naucita Associis has been referred to by the Supreme Court of India while determining the meaning by of words which are doubtful. So the doctrine basically means that meaning of doubtful words, meaning of uncertain words, ambiguous words can be ascertained by reference to the words with which that particular word is associated. So it literally means meaning by association, Naucita Associis. In other words, it is also expressed as an axiom whereby a word is known by the company that it keeps. So if a word is frequently used with reference to certain kind of other words, then the meaning of that word can be ascertained by reference to those words in which it is associated, with which it is associated. But it must always be kept in mind that it is only when the meaning of words appears to be some uncertain, unclear, unambiguous, ambiguous, only then we would refer to the doctrine of Naucita Associis. And that problem always remains whether a particular court in a particular case will find the meaning to be unclear, ambiguous, uncertain. That always depends upon the judge and his personality and his understanding of the law and society and so on. However, so let us now go on to discuss the meaning of this word, the meaning of the doctrine of Naucita Associis with reference to cases in which it has been discussed. The corollary of this rule is that when the meaning appears to be very clear and unambiguous and very certain and very precise to the court, then the court may not like to invoke this doctrine. The first case which I want to discuss with you on this doctrine is Mangu Singh versus Election Tribunal. It is a case decided by the Supreme Court of India. Mangu Singh versus Election Tribunal. The judgment was delivered in 1957 by the Supreme Court, and in this case the election of one appellant was set aside. Election to the municipal body was set aside because he was in areas of certain taxes and certain dues under UP Municipalities Act. So UP Municipalities Act provided that if a person has not paid his her dues or areas of municipal taxes, then he or she will be disqualified from getting elected to municipal body or authority. In this case, and that area was very specifically mentioned that the area should be in excess of 1 year's demand. I mean, so someone is in area of his municipal taxes in excess of 1 year's demand, then he or she was going to be disqualified. In this particular case, the appellant was in excess of 1 year's demand at the time of filing of her nomination, but he made the payment of his areas before the date of poll and he was elected. Now the question was, when his election was challenged, his election was set aside on the ground that on the date of nomination he was in excess, he was in area of in excess of 1 year's demand. When the appeal went to the Supreme Court, the appellant tried to play with the word demand, and he contended, the lawyer, the counsel on behalf of the appellant contended that this word demand is to be understood in the sense that when somebody is asked to pay the arrear or the taxes and a formal notice is given and he or she does not pay. So this is how the word demand, the ordinary meaning, the dictionary meaning of the word demand, this is how it is to be construed, that a notice is sent and arrears are demanded, taxes are demanded, and a person falls in arrear despite the notice. However, Supreme Court in this case observed that we have to look at the meaning of this word demand in the context and collocation of words in which it has been used, and if we go by the context in which and the words in association with which this word demand has been used, then it will imply, the word demand will imply only in excess of 1 year, and it makes no reference to the formal requirement of notice being served. So the law, the UP Municipalities Act only says that anybody who has not paid his municipal taxes and is in arrear of in excess of 1 year's taxes or dues, he or she shall be disqualified from getting elected. The court further observed that ordinary meaning or dictionary meaning may convey to us that something which has been demanded. So the word demand will mean something which has been demanded by way of notice, written or otherwise. But here the court said, and I quote, "But the meaning of a word must take color from the context in which it has been used." And in this law, UP Municipalities Act, the context in which the word demand has been used is very obvious and very clear, that it means to the amount of arrears or dues depends upon the disqualification depends upon the excess of arrears more than 1 year. So if taxes or dues are in excess of 1 year, 1 year's requirement, then a person is disqualified, and that is sufficient to hold the person who is concerned here, who has not paid his municipal taxes or dues in excess of 1 year, then he or she is to be disqualified, irrespective of the fact whether a formal notice of demand was put to him or not, because disqualification does not really depend upon the formal notice, and therefore here in this case the word demand was interpreted differently by the Supreme Court of India. Another case which I would like to discuss today is State of Bombay versus Hospital Mazdoor Sabha. And in this case the question was whether under the Industrial Disputes Act 1947 the word hospital is included in industry or not. And in this case the court has made some very interesting observations about the doctrine of nociter associis. It also went on to distinguish this doctrine of nociter associis with the principle of ejusdem generis, and also discuss the problem of ascertaining the meaning of words, expression and phrases used in different statutes. The court said that the doctrine of nociter associis means that where the meaning is doubtful, word may be ascertained by reference to the meaning of words with which it is associated, and it is much broader in scope in comparison to the doctrine of ejusdem generis. And the court observed that this doctrine of ejusdem generis in fact is a particular application of the doctrine of nociter associis. We know that ejusdem generis means of the same kind, and here we are looking at the meaning of word in the context in which it is used. So we are looking at words which precede the word in question, whose meaning is doubtful, and which succeed it. In the doctrine of ejusdem generis, we only look at the category in which a word has been used, and we give similar meaning to the word which has succeeded. So the court observed in this case that the doctrine of ejusdem generis is only an illustration or specific application of the broader doctrine of Nausitor associis. However, uh, the court discuss that it is the color of the attributes which every word, some essential features which every word carries, uh, that is very important. While applying the doctrine of Nausitor associis, what we are looking at is we are looking at the features or attributes of words in whose company this particular word, which is doubtful, finds its place. So if there are certain features and attributes associated with the words in the context of which this particular word in question has been used, in this case for example the word hospital, then we are going to look at those attributes and features, and this particular word will draw its color from the words in whose company it finds its place. But the court also observed that it must be borne in mind that Nausitor associis is merely a rule of construction, and it cannot prevail in cases where the wider meaning of words has been intended by the legislature, or where the meaning of the word is quite clear in itself. There does not appear to be much of a doubt as far as the meaning of the word is concerned, and therefore in those cases where the object of the legislature in using wider word is clear and it is free from ambiguity, then the rule of doctrine of Nausitor associis cannot be pressed into surface. Do you get the point? So after discussing the nature and scope of doctrine of Nausitor associis and comparing it with the jus dem generis, the court went on to observe that it is not always necessary to apply the doctrine of Nausitor associis. It will depend upon the finding by the court whether the meaning of a word in a particular statute is doubtful or not. If the intention of the legislature, intention of the statute comes out very clearly from the ordinary meaning or from the general meaning of that word, then the doctrine of Nausitor associis cannot be pressed into service. And in this particular case, the court went on to hold that the relevant word hospital and industry and the context in which it comes, the meaning is very clear that hospital will be included in the word industry. The last case which I would like to discuss with you is equally interesting. It is controller of imports and exports versus K.T. Kushalram, the case decided by the Supreme Court in 1970. And here in this case, facts are quite interesting for us to follow. There was a law which provided that if someone is importing certain presses, rotary presses, then he or she, under the license of import, can only utilize those goods or consume those goods in his or her own factory. Do you get the point? So if you have imported certain rotary presses, then you can consume it in your own factory, you can utilize it in your factory, and the sale of that imported good, that imported press, was prohibited. In this case, the respondent, they imported the rotary press, and they imported two of them, and they went on to sell one of them. Under the import license rule, selling was prohibited. Only the utilization or consumption of the imported press was permitted. So you could use it in your own factory, but you could not sell. And because the respondent went on to sell, he was prosecuted. And when he was prosecuted, he tried to defend himself with the reference to this word consumption and utilization and raw material, etc. And he argued before the Supreme Court that if you go by the word consumption and utilization, which appears in the import license agreement, in import license rule, then it would appear that it is only when it applies only to goods which are capable of being consumed personally or capable of being utilized personally. This complete printing press which he had imported will not fall in that category, because if you go by the dictionary meaning of word consumption or utilization, then you will find that it would imply destruction of the commodity which is actually being consumed. So he tried to take shelter behind the dictionary meaning, behind the ordinary meaning of the word which was used in the import license rule. The Supreme Court in this case held that in our opinion, dictionary meaning, however helpful in understanding the general sense of the words, cannot control where the scheme of the statute or the instrument considered as a whole conveys a somewhat different meaning. So Supreme Court very categorically held that dictionary meaning is not going to control, it cannot always control the specific context in which the word has been used, and it cannot override, it cannot in a way take over the statute from the dictionary. So dictionary cannot go on to control the meaning which is the sense of meaning in which a word has been used by the legislature. In fact, Supreme Court also observed that it is not always a safe way to construe a statute or a contract by dividing it through a process of etymological dissection, and after separating words from their context to give each word some particular definition given by the lexicographers, and then to reconstruct the instrument upon the basis of those definitions. So Supreme Court said that it is impermissible for us to first pick up the dictionary meaning and then dissect it from the context in which the legislature has used, and then go on to reconstruct the meaning of the statute itself. That would not be an exercise in interpretation. That would be an exercise in remaking of the statute. And then the Supreme Court further observed what particular meaning should be attached to words and phrases in a given instrument is usually to be gathered from the context, the nature of the subject matter, the purpose or the intention of the author, and the effect of giving to them or the other permissible meanings on the object to be achieved. And then Supreme Court makes certain observation which I had discussed in one full lecture about the possibility of one word being used to signify multiple objects. Supreme Court says, and I quote, each word is but a symbol. Each word is but a symbol which may stand for one or a number of objects. The context in which a word conveying different shades of meaning is used is of importance in determining the precise sense which fits in with the context as intended to be conveyed by the author. Do you get the point? The context in which a word conveying different shades of meaning. So a word is always capable of conveying different shades of meaning. A word is always capable to denote a number of objects, but it is in the context in which the context in which the word has been used will determine the precise sense which fits in with the context which is intended to be conveyed by the author. So you will have to look at the context, and the doctrine of Nociter Associis helps us to get the context, because you are looking at words which have been used before the word in question and after the word in question, and you are trying to actually find out the context in which the word has been used and then ascertain the meaning. So Supreme Court here in this case went on to observe that the word consumption here in this case has not been in the sense of consuming the article, consuming the goods, in the sense of eating it and finishing it off and destroying the commodity. No, it has been used in the sense of utilizing or using that good in the factory. So you have to take the meaning of this word consumption, utilization in the scheme of things in which it appears. So you have to actually look at the word factory. You have to look at the word raw materials which can be used in the factory. You have to look at with the function that it can perform in the factory. You are the factory owner, you have imported certain goods under import license permission. License says that you cannot sell it, you can utilize it in your own factory. So you utilize it, you consume it. Consume in the sense that you may put it to use in your own factory. Not that you can go on to sell it, because it is not something that you can eat and finish it off by invoking the dictionary meaning. Alright. So it is very interesting that we have discussed this idea at the very outset itself, that words are capable of denoting number of objects. They are capable of carrying different shades of meaning, and which shade of meaning will actually be utilized by the code will depend on the context of it, in the context in which it has been used by the legislature. However, the larger problem always remains whether in particular cases a court will find that the meaning is doubtful, unclear, ambiguous or not. That will depend upon the makeup of the court, not on the makeup of the legislature, not on the makeup of the actual word which has been used. So that finding is the preliminary finding. The court can always find that the meaning is clear, the meaning is unambiguous. It is very precise, it is very certain. So there is no need for us to look at the context in which the word has been used, or no need for us to invoke the doctrine of nociter associs. However, once this preliminary finding is reached that the word is doubtful, it is not very clear, it is not certain, then the court can go on to look up all the words in association with which this particular word has been used, and then arrive at a particular meaning. So in this video we have discussed the doctrine of nociter associes with reference to certain cases in which it has been utilized to give meaning, and in some cases where the court has also refused to use the doctrine because to it appeared that the meaning is very clear and unambiguous. In the next video I would like to discuss the doctrine of ejusdem generis with reference to some case laws. Thank you so much.